Now Juventus are sure to reach unprecedented heights. Alisha Lehmann met with children from the summer camp, Juventus. New heights with Alisha. Summer for many children is a time of joy, fun, and of course soccer. This year's Juventus summer camp gave its participants a unique opportunity to meet one of the most influential figures in the world of soccer, Alisha Lehmann. This event will undoubtedly be memorable for every child and may even be a turning point in their lives. Alisha Lehmann, known for her unique appearance and motivational speeches, spent several days with the children from the camp, sharing her experience and knowledge with them. Her presence at the camp created incredible excitement among the participants, and for good reason, as Lehmann is known for her innovative approaches to training and inspiring success stories. For many boys and girls who are passionate about soccer, meeting Alisha Lehmann was a source of new motivation and energy. Her success story, her passion for the game, and her unique training techniques have inspired children to dream big and ambition. Some believe that this meeting was the pivotal moment that would push them to reach unprecedented heights in the world of soccer. The Juventus camp has always strived to ensure that children receive not only a soccer education, but also moral support, motivation, and inspiration. The meeting with Alisha Lehmann was a vivid example of how the club pays attention to the development of personality of each participant of the camp. The guys asked Alisha questions about Juventus Soccer Club. Our heroine is very erudite and intelligent, knows a lot about the soccer club. For example, the most scandalous. 1913, Juventus flew out of the championship. In the official history of the club says that they did not fly out until Calciopoli. Technically, this is true, but after the accidental championship in 1905 performed poorly. In 1913, Juventus lost 8 out of 10 games. Last place, relegation, but the Turin guys are slick. They announced that Turin was no longer Piedmont, but Lombardy. They went to the group with Inter and Milan and survived, unlike Juventus from Rome and Milan. And they didn't give up the habit of trickery. 1923, Agnelli come along with the scandals. In 1900, Giovanni Agnelli's factory assembled 24 cars. 6 years later, over 1,000 were produced. Agnelli added the Juventus Soccer Club to the collection in 1923, giving it to his son Edoardo. This is Andrea Agnelli's grandfather. The young rich man took up the cause. Poached from the composition of the champions pro Vercelli Rosetta, a big scandal. Hired the first coach in the history of the club, Hungarian Károly. In 1926, won the championship. 2 years later to Rosetta will add Caligaris. Also the younger Agnelli during the Olympics spotted in Amsterdam forward Orsi. Big transfer. Raimundo in the port of Genoa received from Agnelli the keys to a car, a gold watch with diamonds, and the keys to a villa in Turin. Juventus' new owner is saddled with the practice with Oriendu, the return of players with Italian roots. Argentines Monti and Orsi would win 5 championships for Mr. Agnelli and a World Cup for Mussolini. 1961, Herrera felt the power of the corporation. In 2014, Fiat was taken over by an American corporation and the offices were taken to Amsterdam. Taxes continue to be paid in Italy to be influential. Many decades ago, things were different. On April 16, 1961, the fate of the Scudetto was decided in a match between the contenders, Juventus and Inter. The Turin bosses sold 10,000 more tickets than the stadium could hold. Even in the first half, the crowd rushed onto the pitch. The referee, who should not have allowed the game itself because of the risk of a crowd, stopped the match. According to the regulations, it was a technical defeat for Juventus. But Umberto Agnelli, Andrea's dad, was president of the Soccer Federation. Forced the match to be replayed. Inter rebelled. Herrera put in the reserves. Juventus won 9-1. The Turin side made a lot of enemies that day. 1972, Juventus gets a godfather. Italo Allodi was a great master of combinations that were not always legal. He was accused many times of working with referees, 100 times criticized for transfer tricks. And not once was he ever proven guilty, although accusations were made. Italo brought the great players of Angelo Moratti's era to Inter. Only King Pelé refused to come, even though he was lured. And in 1970, Allodi ended up at Juventus. helped to rebuild the team, found Bottega, Zoff, and others, and quickly got into a scandal. In 1972, Torino and Juventus claimed the Scudetto, but the referees ignored the obvious goal of the current team Miranchuk. The title went to the main team of Turin. By the way, it was Allodi who invited Modici to Juventus. Luciano learned a lot from the boss. In the 60s, Juventus were first only twice. In the 70s, even after Allodi's departure, the club has 5 championships. 1998, Zeman accuses the legends of doping. Bonaparti has already given way to Umberto Agnelli in charge. Pope Andrea bet on Moji. Luciano worked as best he could. Various opponents accused the black and whites of buying referees, although other clubs also dabbled in such things. But it was only when Coach Zeman suspected the use of doping by Serie A clubs that a scandal broke out. Lawyers delayed investigations so long that although the court recognized that Juventus and others had used bouquets of drugs, they could not put anyone in jail. The statute of limitations had expired. The doctor and pharmacist who wrote the bogus prescriptions for the drug warehouse had by then served their sentences. Veterans confirmed the speculation. They used doping. 2006. The champion is sent to Serie B for match fixing. Moji acquitted was the false headline. The courts dragged on so long after the initial verdicts with sanctions against various clubs that only referee De Sanctis managed a 1-year suspended sentence. Moji and the others waited to avoid going to jail. But no one denies the existence of match fixing in industrial quantities, as well as working with referees. Juventus only insists that Inter were also greased, but gave everyone up first and got away with it. By the way, Modici, who has been banned from Soccer Matters for life, was at Juventus' fresh shareholder meeting. The 85-year-old grandfather declared that all newspapers lie and Juventus is the most honest. Shook a flash drive with recordings that supposedly exonerate him. Called Inter managers fascists. The gaffers have a cozy world of senile madness. But it's important that Agnelli let Maggi into the meeting. It was important for Andrea to show that he wasn't the only one caught. 2022, Juventus was not punished because of strange transfers. Prosecutors failed to prove that Italian clubs inflated transfer values to improve reporting. That doesn't mean there wasn't a scheme, though. Except that Agnelli was dabbling in other methods of debt avoidance during the pandemic and was punished for it. A powerful billionaire who sold tickets to mobsters, he'd already been suspended for that, thought he'd get off with a fine. But they removed 15 points and suspended the managers. The court is not the last. On March 27th, the session on the case of Prism. After the failure of Plusvalens, prosecutors have collected new evidence. If Agnelli pumped 700 million euros into the club in circumvention of the law, then minus 15 points is still good luck. Fans are being tried to lie that everyone violated like Andrea Agnelli, but we're talking about different court cases. Agnelli should have stayed out of it. Sit in the stand, give money. Don't stop professionals from working. The only successful scheme. And now Sef Aaron will take revenge on his former friend, who swore that there will be no Super League. On the other hand, Juventus lawyers are stronger than the prosecutors. But even if they reduce the fine to 9 points, the mistakes of Agnelli, Paradisai, and Nedved, including purely soccer ones, will affect the future of the club. It will be lucky if Zidane comes in. But if UEFA knock Juventus out of the European Cup for 3 years, Zinedine will refuse. Time and time again, management decisions sink in. Juventus could win often without the machinations. But the Agnelli clan would rather cheat than come second. In return, John Elkann, the American heir to the empire, had reason to kick out Andrea's relative from Juventus. It is important to put the club in the hands of independent managers, as has happened in their glorious history. And if they only pretend to start reforms, they will end badly. The real successes are only when Agnelli doesn't touch Marotta-class managers. Andrea got involved because he dreamed of winning the Champions League without his father. Ego got in the way. Ronaldo's transfer and the pandemic trampled the club financially. Hence the obsession with the Super League, which is heavily promoted. Far from the first time Agnelli has broken the rules, and the fans and players suffer. Pity them. Friends, what do you think about this?